Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and today on Tips and Techniques, we're going to talk about how to sharpen your knives. So while I'm no expert on the subject, I certainly know how to keep my knives sharp at home, and today I want to share with you some of those tips and techniques and some of the tools that are going to help you keep and maintain a nice sharp edge on your knife. Let's start walking through this. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to know if your knife needs to be sharpened. Now obviously if you can kind of touch it, put some pressure on it, and it doesn't feel sharp, then it's probably not very sharp. That would be the case with this Victorinox 8-inch chef's knife. This Wüstof's in pretty good shape, and usually the first way that I'll check to see if my knife needs a new edge on it is the fingernail test. So I'll hold my thumb out at a 45-degree angle. If that knife wants to slide off there, that means it's probably kind of dull. Whereas this Wüstof, it grips right on there. So that's like test number one. If you're checking to see if your knife's really sharp, one of the things you can do is slice through a piece of paper with it. Now if it doesn't tear much, then it's probably in pretty good shape. That one's got a little bit of tearing, probably just because it needs to be honed. Now this one that looks a bit more dull, it's doing a lot more tearing, and that tells me that we need to put an edge on this. So the first tool we can talk about, it's not actually a sharpener, these are honing steels. So essentially what these do is when your knife is dull, it starts to feather like this, right? So the way that you put that back together is run it across the steel and it straightens it out. It doesn't actually take any metal off. These right here are honing steels, these three, different brands, Victorinox, Usin, and Wüstof, and they're for fine honing. This is a diamond steel, it's got a little bit more grip to it, and this is kind of my favorite, like every day I'm gonna run my knife across this tool. So the idea here is that you're gonna take your knife and you're gonna put it about 20-degree angle, roughly whatever, if you know what the angle of your knife is, but it's not hugely important when you're honing so much as when you're sharpening. But essentially, like if you're new to this, what you wanna do is kind of look for, here's 90, here's 45, here's 22, here's a little less. And then you're gonna just take that straight down, and you're gonna do it on both sides. And then as you get a little bit better at this, you can move a little bit quicker. And then honestly, for me, the most comfortable way to hold this is to go this way. But you kind of have to get used to the feel of that angle and just that motion of sliding it down the steel. So at this point, that's all I would need for kind of a daily use. So next we're actually going to get into tools that sharpen your knives, and there's different varieties of those as well. Some of the most basic ones are just really simple pull through, manual pull throughs. The other ones, electric. Now you're getting to spend a little bit more money, but you're going to get probably a little bit better result out of that. And then finally we'll get into the whetstones, which is where technique really comes into it. So when it comes to these manual pull-through sharpeners, there's tons of them out there. These are, there's 5 right here that we sell on atbbq.com, and that's just from the few brands that we carry. So you essentially have a coarse side and a fine side, and the simplest version of these, which takes off quite a bit of metal. You're gonna see some shavings come off, and that makes me cringe a little bit sometimes, but these will get your knives sharp. This is just another step up. It's got the nice icon handle. You've got the Usin that's got 3 stages here, so you're getting a little bit more refined. The Wüstof that's got the Asian and the standard, so depending on what type of knives you're using. And then this Kangshan one's pretty cool. It's got coarse and fine and a scissor attachment, and you can actually set the angle on this to whatever knife you're using. So on a pull through, you're just gonna work your way from the most coarse to the finest, and you're simply sliding that through there, starting to put an edge on it. Then you're gonna refine that edge. And then this last one just kind of cleans up any burrs, which the burrs are just the little pieces that kind of go off to the sides. It's gonna take those off. Now moving on to your electric sharpeners. Now there's different types of these as well. My personal favorite right now is this Wüstof one. This is a belt style sharpener. So you can actually switch this belt out for different grits. If you want to go a little bit more gritty, if you need to do a little bit more sharpening, or you can stick with these finer ones, which kind of polish and finish sharpening that knife. So that just slides right on there. And this has different settings that say shape, sharpen, or refine. So again, this could be a good daily use. If all you need is to just refine the edge, you can just go that one stage. Or you can go all the way up to shaping it, which is going to start from a dull knife. And what you're gonna do is it sets that angle for you, so you just slowly pull while keeping it up against the edges, and now that belt is putting just the right angle on your knife. And with this one, as it gets to the sharpen stage, it's gonna go a little bit slower, and then as it gets to the refine stage, it's gonna go even slower. So you're using the same belt at different speeds to affect how much change you're doing to the knife itself. And there you can see when it is about to change, it'll blink, it'll slow down a little bit, and you'll move on to the next stage. But you can choose to do one of these stages, or all of them, or two of them. Now this Shun electric sharpener works a little bit different. It's got these ceramic wheels that turn in here, and again, it sets the angle for you, and you just pull it through as they're running. You go one, you go two, and then once you're happy with that, it's got a third pull through just to take off the burrs. So now we're gonna get down and dirty with real manual sharpening. This right here is how I learned to sharpen a knife in culinary school, on a Tri-Stone like this. It's got a coarse, that's the fine, and there's the medium. So you can work your way through the stages. So for a knife like this one that's pretty dull, we're gonna need to spend some time on coarse, really working that out, and then we'll work our way up to medium and refine it with the fine side. Similarly, we have this Kangshan kit that comes with a whetstone. So this whetstone, you're gonna wanna soak in water for, I don't know, 20 minutes before you sharpen it. This stone right here, we're also going to put some oil on. You can use oil or water, honestly. Sometimes you can just fill this basin, and that way, in between, if you put some water down here, you can kind of keep things wet before you turn them. But also just putting some mineral oil on the surface. The whole point is to make sure that you're not chipping off pieces of this stone, that it's not so dried out that it does damage rather than doing good. Get that fully submerged. Now for the Tri-Stone, we're gonna start all the way on coarse and work through 3 stages of sharpening these knives. So hitting this with some mineral oil. Well, can also throw some water on there to keep things nicely lubricated. But essentially what I'm gonna do is same as what we did with our honing steels, and that's you're gonna have your knife flat, and you're gonna try to find that, roughly 20-degree angle to set that edge. And there's actually some really great tools out there, like this guide right here that comes with the Kangshan kit, and that sets that angle for you. So you don't have to worry about if you got it right or wrong. You can just go ahead and take your swipe, and I like to do one long, smooth swipe from the heel all the way to the tip, so I know that I'm sharpening everything evenly. I'm actually gonna take this off just for the sake of me being comfortable, but just mild pressure. I think I've heard about 4 pounds. If you want to, you can get a scale out and push down 4 pounds and see what that feels like. But for the most part, this is all just muscle memory. I learned how to do this in culinary school. This is how I learned to do it, so that's what's comfortable for me. That doesn't make it absolutely right, and it doesn't mean you can't use different techniques, but this is the one that I like to use. So a lot of times what I'll do here is maybe go a good 4 or 5 passes, flip it over to the other one an equal amount, and then once I start to feel like we're getting a good edge set, now I'm just gonna go 1 and 1. So I make sure I'm doing it evenly, sharpening evenly on both sides. So for a really dull knife, I might need to spend a good 5 or 10 minutes working on this edge. These Victorinox knives are great if you want to do your own sharpening because they take an edge pretty easy. Your expensive knives, like your more expensive, like your Shun and your Wüsthof, they hold an edge a little bit longer, but they're also a little bit tougher to sharpen because that metal's so much harder. So once you feel like you've got a good start, you're gonna flip that over to the medium stage. Hit this with a little bit of oil as well. And you're gonna do the exact same thing. I'll start by taking maybe 4 or 5 passes on one. and go back the other direction. Heel to tip, trying to make sure all of the blade from the heel to the tip hits before I get off the edge, just to keep things even and neat. And then once again, once I get to the point where I'm about ready to go ahead and switch to fine, I'm going to go back and forth, one pass each way to keep it evenly sharpened. Now this is just going to kind of finish everything off, smooth out that edge, polish it up a little bit. Same process as every other stage though. Let's do a little paper test and see if we got there. I'd say that's pretty good. Tearing just a little, which means that we could still clean it up a little bit more. But that's gone from completely dull to now holding a decent enough edge that you're not going to be smashing whatever you're slicing. Now when it comes to the whetstone, it's got a more coarse side, a 1000 grit, and a finer side, the 6000 grit. So this is very similar to the Tri-Stone that we just used. But there are different techniques that can be used on this. I'm not an expert with these stones. The Tri-Stone is really where I'm comfortable. But once again, you can use your guide on here. A lot of people will do small strokes back and forth all the way down. You can still use that same technique that I like to use on the Tri-Stone, which is one long swipe. Again, not my favorite way to do this, but a lot of people get really into their whetstone. And this is a really cool hobby to get into if you're interested. And the cool thing about the Kingshan kit is it also comes with the leather strop, so you can really put a refined finish on your blade. So I just threw a lot of information at you guys, a lot of different tools, but hopefully what you can take away from this is that there are a lot of tools out there that can help keep your knives sharp, and they range in all different price ranges. And honestly, it's kind of about how much work you want to put into it. This kind of can get to the point where it's a hobby, just keeping knives sharp on a Tri-Stone. It's a really fun, cathartic thing to do. But if you just need a tool to get the job done, there's plenty of those out there too. And most of them you can find at atbbq.com. Shameless plug, go check them out. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed that video, please hit the subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for tips and techniques, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to atbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.